All right, welcome to Your House, Our Rules, episode 41.
41, yeah.
Unbelievable, man.
41 episodes.
And
That's incredible.
And we got Bret in the house, man. Motivational.
Salute the camera.
Motivational man right here. So
Motivational.
it's Bullish Project is your podcast, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what do you guys talk about? What do you discuss?
So it's mostly solo. Do have a few guests on every now and then, but it's just everyday stuff. I take anything that I go through day to day. How do I stay motivated? How do I look at things? And most of that, we were just talking about it. I learned from Gary Vee and learned from Eric Thomas.
Yeah.
The mindset thing that's where it starts. It's like waking up, being in a good mood, being optimistic about stuff. Otherwise, you know, your body physically can't follow unless the mind goes first. Yep. So that's what we talk about.
And I love that you're taking it from your personal perspective.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I think that really, because people can relate to that of what maybe they're going through based upon maybe what you're going through at that time.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
It's genuine.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it comes from you. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So I saw Bret, who I've known for a while. I think when we first met was, I don't remember what show it was, but it was some like rhythm show in like 2018, 2019 or something like that. And you've always been a little bit in like the back of the crowd type dude, but like I remember we always like hit it off a little bit because I remember one time I was talking about optic gaming, which we've covered on podcasts and shit, and you knew what I was talking about. And like I saw that you were doing this podcast, and I was like, dude, I had no idea. And it was like 15 episodes in or something like that. And I was like, damn, let me check this out, bro. Send me like an episode that you think is the best. And I was watching it, and I was astounded by his ability to be able to talk for an hour straight by himself.
It gets tough sometimes. Like I have to keep the notes together, but once I have a basic topic, I can just start talking and talking and talking. Especially, like I said, it comes from me and my personal experience. I can tell a story from my personal experience, no problem. So
right,
and keep it motivational and optimistic. A lot of people look at me, they're like, I love how you look at things. And when I was talking about social media on one of my episodes, people were like, I love how you look at that. I never thought about social media like that, because I don't hate social media. I actually love it. I think it's a great tool when it's used properly.
It's a bit of a gift and a curse type thing, for sure. For sure. There's a lot of fuck shit that happens with it, but it is definitely something that connects our entire world.
Of course.
So, and I've noticed something about your podcast that you do, and like you told me that you were like, I'm not even really like pushing it all that much. I want to get some content out first, and like I respect that. That's definitely a good idea, but you also like have like clips of your podcast and stuff that you post on like Instagram for people to see and
Correct.
stuff, and like that's a good way of getting your name out there. So I actually realized I'm into the gaming community a lot, and I forget who I was watching that was talking, but they were talking about like the Twitch stream. It's probably the Optic podcast, but they're talking about like Twitch streamers, and they said like in order to get new content creators like front and forward on Twitch, they said that algorithm doesn't exist. So you have to use like TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat and stuff to get your name out there so people click on your stream and stuff like that.
It's tough unless they're specifically looking for it. The organic algorithm like TikTok, Instagram Reels and stuff like that, that's where you get your views and followers and stuff, and then they'll check you out on other platforms.
But I love doing the clips because then you're giving them a little bit, and then they're like, okay, I want more of it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Exactly. You're kind of feeding them a little bit, and then they just want the whole meal. Right,
exactly.
And that's a tough balance to find, because like I find that when I'm like the song that we released recently, Charlie and the Trappin' Factory, me and Smiles, I was trying to figure out how to like post a clip, and I was like, you know what, do I bring it and like show them some of the drop, or do I just bring it right up to the drop as like a super tease, or do I just show somewhere right in the middle and something like that? Like it gets a little bit complicated when you're trying to plan out exactly how you want to see it. And I know like I've tried to do clips with Your House, Our Rules, and I definitely have posted some, but I think a lot of this stuff, it gets a little bit too long-winded. So like you end up having like a 1.5-minute episode and like or 1.5-minute like video or whatever, and like one thing that Vine did so well was the fact that it was only 7-second videos, and like that's like they had like mathematics that they did that was just, like their attention span only lasts for like 7 seconds on one thing, and that's what like really gets you in. So that's why they did like the 7 seconds. So you want to do something that has an impact in a short amount of time to get people to click on
exactly
that.
Yeah. And when I do the podcast, it is strictly for what that person is going to get out of it instead of the other way around. And I've been trying to really think about that first, because I'm not trying to get people to buy something from me. I'm not trying to get them to give me their money somehow. What can I give that person who's trying to listen and watch? That's what.
Sorry to steal this from you, Spilly, and sorry to cut you, but you're giving them something of value.
Exactly. That's where it starts.
That's where it starts. Because then you'll have their attention span from that point forward, hopefully, and they'll continue to follow you because you're giving them something of value.
Exactly. Yes. And for free, especially.
Yeah. And like if you look at like some interviews or like YouTube videos of like some famous people, they talk about that, how like it's more important to just want to do it as like a passion and entertain people than to make money off of it. Exactly. Like you look at any of them, and it might just be because they're saying it because it's better for the fans or whatever, but like genuinely, like when I'm out there and I'm trying to like plug myself, I don't feel as good about it. I feel like I'm like pushing something on someone that they don't necessarily need. It feels a whole lot more natural and a whole lot more genuine when you're just kind of doing it to do it. Just to like, I have music that I want to release. I have a podcast I want to release, so I'm going to release it. And when people see what I'm doing, it's just a way more genuine thing that you get with it. Yeah,
because when you're not worried about just the number or the sale, and you worry about what they're trying to get out of it, and it just comes natural. You post it, you don't feel bad, like you just said. Just roll.
And actually, we covered this story a couple episodes ago. It's been a while, but there was this old like fitness YouTuber. His name was Connor Murphy, and like he used to do videos where like he would go and like do like the street interviews, like find random people or whatever, and he'd like have this big ass alpaca jacket on or whatever, and he'd have like a red shirt popping on. And he'd be like, "Can you guess what color my shirt is?" And he'd go up to a pretty chick or whatever, and they'd be like, "Oh, it's red. Obviously, I can see it." And then he'd just rip his shirt off and fucking do that. He blew up because he had a fucking amazing physique, but he always said in his YouTube videos, he's like, I never wanted to do it for like the entertainment or because like working out was my thing. He's like, I wanted to do it because I had an amazing physique and I wanted to make money. And he ended up going on this ayahuasca trip. And he tripped on ayahuasca. He came back and was never the same. Like if you look at his videos that he's posting now, it's super just like trippy, like can't understand what he's doing. He's lost all kinds of weight, all of his muscles and stuff like that. And like that just kind of goes to show you that the ones that are in it for the wrong reasons aren't necessarily doing what they need to do to last in the industry.
It definitely doesn't last when you're doing it for money. It definitely doesn't last. They say money doesn't buy happiness. It's literally a root saying, and it's so true. Because when you get to a point where the money isn't the motivation anymore, then you stop, and that's it. You don't have any other reason to keep going.
Right, but then typically the money comes because that's not your motivation. Your motivation is because you have a passion and you have a want to do something like that. It's the right. You know what I mean? It's in your heart that like that's what you're going after. The money will come.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? The money will come.
All the accolades come.
Absolutely.
Everything comes. The cars, the girls, whatever you're chasing, it comes. But if you have a dream and you're doing it because you're passionate, that's all you got to focus on.
Because everything else will accumulate itself. Yes, for sure.
Exactly.
For sure. For sure.
And then we got Keith Spilly, the Spillz.
What about
Spillz?
Huh?
What about Keith?
You're the Your House Our Rules, bro.
I am Your House Our Rules. Man, they all know about me. They know what's going on. Why don't we get into our first topic today? So there's some big things happened today. Friday, what is it? June 24th. I don't want to get into it too much because at the end of the day, Roe V Wade got overturned today, and it's something that I already have covered when they leaked that the Supreme Court was going to rule this way. And so there has already been that coverage. I plan on doing something next week when I'm in Atlanta with my buddy Dalton and his girlfriend. But like, it's not something that three white males can necessarily talk about. Like, we can get into it a little bit, but I don't know. Let me just get like a broad aspect of what you guys think about the entire situation. I think I'd like to kick it off with Michael first.
Well, I want to know why I didn't get an invite to Atlanta. I want to go to Atlanta.
Do you want to come?
Yeah, hell yeah. What are you doing down there?
I'm going down to visit my buddy.
Oh, let's do it.
I've never been to Atlanta either.
Shit,
I have once.
I'm getting a flight on Wednesday. If you want to go,
I have once. It was with an old girlfriend of mine, and all I did was watch her dog in a hotel room the entire time while she was working.
The entire time?
It was terrible.
How many days was that?
It was like a 3-day or 4-day trip.
Oh,
it was terrible. It was terrible. One of those little snapper dogs, man.
We definitely won't do that. Quick thing on Atlanta, I just want to say, one time I went to a Bass Nectar concert, and I think it was 2018 or 2017 for New Year's, and it was in Atlanta in this convention center. It was the biggest convention center I have ever been in my entire life. Like, we walked in the front door, and we walked for 15 minutes, no crowd or anything, before we finally reached where he was playing.
That's unbelievable.
It was absolutely crazy. But Mike, how are you feeling about this Roe v. Wade situation?
Well, okay. So when it's basically it's going back to the states now, right? Correct, for the ruling as to whether you can actually move forward with doing an abort. Like, what? I understand the Roe v. Wade thing, and it's going back to the states, but isn't that the way the Constitution was written originally?
So what they determined was that the Supreme Court, ruled that they are not, there's nothing about abortions like that they can constitutionally rule in the Constitution. Right. So because of that, they were not able to really rule on it as the Supreme Court. Okay. And they ended up reverting it and getting rid of it. So now everything is on the state level, and it's up to the state to determine what you're allowed to do. Now, a lot of people are talking about, like rape and incest and like unwanted pregnancies and stuff like that. I think there's 11 states that are really not allowing abortion, and out of that, 5 of them are like, if you get pregnant, you have to have that baby. So there's not many that really don't have some sort of like backup to do some things about it, but a lot of people are just freaking out because it's a huge fucking like human rights and fucking, it's just an issue. Like, it's not changing all that much. If you want to get an abortion, you live in, say, Ohio, and Ohio says that you can't get an abortion, Illinois allows them. So you can go 4 hours over to Illinois and fucking figure that out and stuff like that. So,
okay. Yeah.
So, like, and I understand that. I think a lot more stuff should be more state mandated than federalized. You know what I mean? Honestly, I really do. Because, I mean, it should be specific to the state, in my opinion. And I'm not even just saying that. I mean, a lot of other things that are federally mandated, I think, literally should be more state mandated and let the states figure it out, because it's specific to that state. It's the people that live in that state. You know what I mean? It's not always
demographics.
They don't always have the same. Yeah, they don't always have the same opinions or mindsets as the people that control things from a federal level. For
sure.
Yeah. So one thing that I'm kind of thinking about the entire situation, I'm looking at it and like I think it's a little bit more of a libertarian thing, that they want a little bit more of like a localized government or whatever. I have been that way for a while, and my rationality behind it is like, I know a lot of people in like the Nashville, Tennessee area, and I'm up here in Cincinnati. That's only like 300-400 miles away, and the people up here compared to down there are vastly different. So I think that when it comes down to it, having a state governance for stuff like this is better for the people that live in that localized area.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. I mean, shoot, even people just south of us in Kentucky are different. Now, those are my people, obviously. Okay, big Kentucky basketball fan. You can see that in the tattoo I have. But I mean, yeah, absolutely, because they're governing the people that are in that state, the people that are in their community, that are specific to the areas of which they're governing. And I think that should be where a lot of things are decided, to be honest with you. So that would be my take on that, honestly.
Other than the Constitution, was there any other reason why they overturned it? Like, just because it's not in the Constitution? Like, do we ever get down to that reason at all?
Well, they ruled that they couldn't really find anything that pertains to the subject in the Constitution. There's a lot of people on right now, and I have been having a field day on social media right now.
I've seen it.
Yeah, I'm inciting some shit on social media, because I will take either side benefits me at that moment in time and play devil's advocate. That's just the way I am. A lot of people are blaming religion, and one thing that I don't necessarily agree with is just like automatically pointing fucking fingers at religion. Yes, fundamentalist religious people are against abortion. I talked about this on the episode that me and Bailey did. I was raised in a society or in a family where like if you are pro-abortion, like, fuck you. Like, they'll literally, like, not disown you type shit, but, like, you're black sheeped for thinking that abortion is okay. Because it's all, like, a whole killing the babies type situation. But I'm starting to get a little bit out of that and realize exactly the benefits that have happened to it. And, like, I just don't know, man. It's such a sticky situation. Like, people want to rule what people can do to their own fucking bodies, which I don't think is right. And at the same time, like, how do we really define life in order to be able to figure out if we can, like, if this is taking a life or not? Know what I mean?
Yeah. I totally get it. And then I've seen a lot of arguments with a lot of the gun laws and stuff that come around lately. And the shootings especially, which obviously people are seeing this with the Roe V Wade stuff, and they're like, well, yeah, obviously America cares more about guns than they do women's rights. And I think a lot of people, from what I've seen, just think that it's a step back, like a major step back for women's rights, which is, I do see that. Like, I think it should be a choice personally, but I see both sides. It's tough. Like you said, it's very sticky.
Yeah, it's a massive situation for the entire country, and just having it federally overturned and putting it to the states, like, it is a statement. Now, when people are talking about, like, this is religion and stuff like that, a lot of the people who are religious are against it, but they're not necessarily at a level where they can, like, dictate what goes on in the government. The Supreme Court's the ones that fucking did this shit. Now, I know that there's a lot of fucking backroom lobbying, and, like, there's probably some heads of churches that are in there and stuff like that, but to me, this is a situation where it's pretty blatantly the right trying to get a rise out of the left so that they can take over office this election.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of those like backhanded motivation type, whatever the overturn decision is on the surface. There's a lot of ulterior motives, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure there is too. The biggest thing I think, though, is, like, there's so many things that are stemmed from the Constitution that people nowadays, I think the world has changed a lot. Okay, and like, I'm a pro-life. Like, I've always been pro-life. I've raised pro-life. I've always been pro-life. I mean, there are situations that are very unfortunate for women and what they're placed in, in certain situations that, it was an unplanned, pregnancy, right? But I try and look at things, and I can't speak for them, obviously, because I'm not in their shoes, right? But I try and think things in a positive manner. Like, there are other people out there, women that can have kids, So maybe if you're able to give life to somebody else in another family, even if it's not something you were planning on raising yourself, if somebody else could have that opportunity, you're ultimately helping. You're doing something good for somebody else if you do have that child. You know what I mean? Like, I try and look at it from a positive perspective.
Yeah,
because I try and think of the good out of any situation.
Me too.
And I feel like that's a better way to live. You know what I mean? Like, instead of being so harsh and just, like, I like the positive out of something negative that happens. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
So I'm a little bit of a difference in that I don't necessarily look for the positive things. A lot of people think that I'm like a pessimist and I look towards, like, the negatives and everything. But in reality, I think that a lot of things are just, I'm being a realist. And I think that a lot of the world is really trying to, there was a quote that you had in your podcast that I was like, well, I don't agree with that at all. Where you said life is fair. I think life is completely unfair. And one thing, I've beaten this dead horse multiple times on my podcast, but, like, I am pro-choice, but pro-choice doesn't mean pro-abortion. I think that pro-choice, like, if I want to murder someone, I think that I have that right to do that. I think that I have the right to do that, but by the eyes of the law, if I do that and I get caught, then I'm going to be reprimanded for that situation.
Of course. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's something that's sticky. There's so many different things going on with it, and I made a tweet today that had a little bit of like realism to it, but it was mostly like put out as a joke, like a lot of the shit that I did. I said, having Roe V Wade get overturned on Pride weekend, coincidence? I think not. Nah. So I mean, there might be some shit. I hope that shit doesn't get violent. I really don't. I hope that people can like look at this and realize that there still is going to be states and opportunities to fucking get what you want, and it's just going to be on a state level. And I hope that people understand that, because I see a lot of people just freaking out over not nothing, because there is that representation that we have, but I think people need to take a deeper look into it. And, yeah, for sure.
And see, like, I look at it from this perspective too. Like, I try to pay attention to what I can control.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And it you know, again, I have my opinion, and I should be able to you know, express that, you know, with people understanding it, taking it, and they can either say I agree with something or I disagree with something or whatever. It doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, I can't control anything but what I do. You know what I mean? And so it's like I keep thinking about that and kind of revert back to that. Like, I gotta put forth the effort for what it is that I can control, because ultimately at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and that's the thing that I was talking about before. You know, people think that the government dictates what you do or what you're allowed to do, and they technically do, but at the end of the day, you're allowed to do what you want. You can't be fucking convicted for a crime that you haven't committed yet. And if you want to do something that is illegal, you can do that, and if you don't get caught, who knows any difference. But I do see the point that a lot of women have, that now that some states it won't be illegal, you might have to do this like back alley, fucking dumpster baby type abortions and stuff like that, and that's dangerous, and it is. And I do feel for women like that. And as all this shit is going on, my stance on the situation is just morphing, and we'll have to see how it plays out and how people act about it before we really get into it, or before I really have like a new opinion on it. But it's just a lot.
Well, it's like, at the end of the day, like, I think someone should have the right to be able to choose their own decision, but I'm not the person that ultimately is going to judge them at the end of their time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not. That's
it's not your call.
It's not my call.
Yeah.
You know, let them make that decision. It's not my call, and I can't control what it is that they do. And that's kind of what, you know, like I said, I kind of put that into perspective in a sense. It's like, you know, from a, like, politically, government was put in place, like you were just talking about. You know, they're not telling you what you have to do or whatever. It was put in place to be able to give opportunities to people to succeed. Yes, with rule and law to govern those, you know, those successes and those opportunities, you know, for people. That's what it should be. You know, run it like a business. Make sure the people that are voting for you is successful in every way, shape, or form. But at the end of the day, you yourself have to look in a mirror and say, do I want to be successful, or am I going to put myself in a position to fail?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So in a sense, I am a realist in that way, in a sense, like, you got to put forth the effort. You got to hold yourself accountable for the actions and the stuff that you do.
Exactly.
Because it doesn't matter who's president, who's vice, who's this, who's that, you know, governor of your state or mayor of your freaking town. It doesn't matter. You are the president of you.
Exactly. And that, going back to that life is fair thing that you said, I can't remember. I
agree with that, by the way.
Exactly.
Oh, really?
I can't remember the exact circumstances of what I was talking about.
You said, and I quote, "I think that life is fair."
And before and
there was
after,
more to it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know exactly the circumstances, but if I had to guess, it was probably referring to, in terms of what you put in is what you get out of it. Now, obviously, there are circumstances where things happen to you that you can't control, like what you just said. You can always control your reaction to it, but not what happens to you. And your reaction to it is where the fair part comes in, because you can always put more in if you need to, and you'll get the same out of it.
That's training your brain, though. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
To take something in a negative and turning it into a positive by training how you react to that situation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it took me years to do that. Years of watching.
Some people haven't even ever accomplished that. But
It took me years.
Yeah.
It's literally a rewire because the way your brain works,
Yep.
you automatically go to one different mindset based on that.
It's what you're used to. It's what you're used
And,
to.
yeah, trying to change
Complacency
that
is the worst
tough.
thing. Absolutely.
Well, that's the thing that I kind of peg on that whole situation is that we are a product of our environment, and a lot of people did not grow up in the same environment that we had the privilege of growing up in.
Of course.
And like we could bring that to a whole race level. We're all white males and stuff like that, but like if you are a dark complected person in this country, you don't have the same opportunities that we have. And like when you don't have those opportunities, you got to do what you need to do to survive. And when it really hits you, you realize that a lot of this shit isn't fair. Like we're talking about people like the interest rates that you're talking about at a house is going up and stuff like that. Like taxation, I know like it's a thing, but at the end of the day, it is a theft. Like we get taxed on the money we earn, we get taxed on the property we own, even if we have fully bought that house. Like
Yeah. When you earn it, when you spend it, when you give it to somebody else who's going to spend it themselves, you have to be taxed like 8 different times. Yeah.
Right. And then you can even get down to like a more of a theoretical type of thing. Like asteroid could hit this fucking world tomorrow and fucking decimate the entire humankind. Is that fair?
No. It is fair.
No,
yeah.
but we live in that fucking thin line between fucking life and death.
It is fair. I love it.
It is fair.
Dude, if that happens, I'm fucking telling the aliens to go to your house. I'm giving them your address. Be like, this guy called this. Okay, this guy called this.
I will answer for this world's fucking problems. Any day. Speaking of problems, let's get into this EF fucking electric forest, the water that we have out there. So do you want to kind of introduce this one? This was your topic.
Yeah, so social media, things get out pretty fast. This one seems pretty legit because there's photo evidence. I saw on Facebook, it was posted to a group that I'm in for electric forest, some sort of post, which is a festival. So when you go to a festival, you're kind of living the camp life with minimal stuff. You just get whatever you need for the few days you're there, and then you pack up and leave. And this picture went around. It was a picture of a 24 pack of water that was they're all stacked up. There's obviously a bunch of them there with a paper sign that says "Stay hydrated, happy forest," whatever, other slogan or whatever was on there. And then it said $60 for a case of water. And I'm just like,
for a 12 pack of 12 ounce waters.
24 was 24 pack.
Oh, was it 24 pack?
It was 24.
Still, that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
What
It doesn't
can you
matter.
get? You can get that at Walmart
You can get
for
a
like what?
2400 pack. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
or maybe not.
For you can get like a 24 pack of that same water at Walmart for like under $10 probably.
At least, well, it's probably like $5 or $6, and even at that rate, it's like 11 or 1,000% markup, which is price gouging. It literally, just call it what it is, price gouging.
Can you bring your own water to this?
Yes,
you can.
There's your.
That is the solution.
There's your solution.
But the problem is, the festival has restrictions when you get into the festival. You can't take water bottles generally, filled or not filled.
So you can't bring unopened water bottles in. Like you can't bring unopened cigarettes because people like lace them with LSD. And fucking do all that type of stuff. And that's one of the big issues that people have with the $60 is like they know that people are just strung out on all kinds of uppers and shit in there, and they need fucking clean water. Now, this has been confirmed, as you were talking about before. I saw the post, the same one that you sent me on, Festival Owl.
Yeah.
And Festival Owl is like, when it comes to like festival news and stuff like that, they are the creme de la creme of festival news. They have all the information right, and they're good. They're on the fucking ball.
Yeah.
But I was looking at the comment sections, and there were people that I actually knew from like Tennessee and stuff, my crew down there, and some of the people that I know in like the Cincy scene around here. They're like, it's not a huge deal that they're price gouging that way because you can bring it in, but like when you get into the center grounds, there's these refill stations where they're like spigots where you can fill up your water bottle or whatever, and apparently they're not circulating correctly, and you can like smell and taste the sulfur that is in the water from those fill-up stations.
Yeah,
so they don't
ridiculous.
They don't actually have clean water like there. I think some of the stations do, but when you're talking about tens of thousands of people coming to a music festival and like 2 or 3 of them aren't working correctly, it's an issue.
It is because those fill-up stations have like 10, 20 spots for people to line up and fill their water, and if that's contaminated, you just shut that down, and then you got 2, 3 other major stations in the whole festival, that now those same 300 people that have to migrate over, and then it just clogs it up a little more. Not only that, back to, you know, how you can't just take in your own water. You have to go into the festival. If you're carrying a hydration pack, you have to go into the festival with it empty. So now you're relying on the festival to provide you with clean water inside, or you have to buy it, which is like, you know, $5-6.
Supply and demand.
Exactly.
That's all it is. Supply and demand.
Because everybody's gonna need it. And
they have what you need, and they know it, so they're able to charge a price. It's bullshit.
It is. I think bullshit. The line, like, where do you draw the line? Because
I do want to give EF
a want or need, like, where do you draw the line?
I do want to give EF a little bit of credit on this one, because it's like the top electronic music festival, and they've been doing it for years. So they might have ran into some barriers that they're not necessarily able to work around, but it is a fucked up situation that they have there. But like he said before, you can bring water into the thing. You can't necessarily bring it into the fairgrounds, but you can walk out the exit and fucking go refill or go drink some water out by your camp or whatever. Yeah.
But what barriers would they run into to have to charge $60 for a 24-pack of water?
Yeah, as a major festival at that. Like, major festivals have to get all these different vendors and all these, and they have contracts, and they have access to better pricing generally.
Correct.
So, like,
yeah,
how are they supposed?
It's a bulk situation.
Yeah. Because when you go to a Walmart or a Kroger and you're paying consumer prices for water, and you're paying what, $5-6, whatever it is, for 24. That's consumer prices. You're talking wholesale and maybe even special contract prices,
which is cut, you know, not in half, but it's less. It's like 25-30% less.
$2-3
exactly
for a 24 pack that they're paying per, and they got hundreds of them now that they're charging $60 for.
Well, here
is crazy.
Hear me out. Did Electric Forest happen last year?
No, and did not happen the year before.
It didn't happen the year before that.
The year before.
So when you have this massive music festival that costs fucking millions of dollars to put on, and you're having tens of thousands of people there, and you've been doing this every year, and then all of a sudden COVID hits, and there's 2 years that you don't do that, there's going to be like some price cuts and things that they have to do to be in order to make money, because they tried to put on that festival for 2 years and they couldn't do it.
They couldn't. Yeah.
That's a huge loss.
Huge blow. But not only that, do you really think that their water is their main source of income? Like, I mean, like I said, want or need, water's kind of a need. You don't have to buy that particular pack of water necessarily, but at the end of the day, water, no matter where you get it, is a need. And that necessarily $60, they could have probably lowered that price a little bit. I mean, you're in a festival, there is supply and demand, but you could lower that and maybe charge extra on some other things. Everybody knows they're going to be paying twice as much probably for food at a festival, but for water, when it's kind of like a need, that's where I kind of draw the line.
Well, I was going to say, that's where a lot, like, if you go to a movie theater and you go to the movies, the ticket itself for the movie, that's not where they make their money. Where do you think they make their money?
It's the popcorn and fucking drinks.
Yeah. I'm sure it's potentially similar for a situation like that. Okay. Yeah. But what I was going to say is, going back to what you just said, Spilly, it's like, you're like, yeah, they haven't had it the last couple of years, but like they're trying to get, you know, recoup some of those funds that maybe they missed out on for the last, you know, 2-3 years, whatever. Mm-hmm. But that's also kind of what we're going through right now as a country, and having to pay crazy prices for a lot of things is to recoup the funds of which they've had to pay out for, you know, people who couldn't work during COVID and situations like that. That's we're paying that back and seeing that as a, you know, that's, you know, same situation basically.
Yeah, and it's just in a different venue with the festival. Yeah,
correct.
Which festivals are businesses just like any.
Absolutely, they've got to make money, and now they're trying to get as much money out of what they can put together.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, it's something that definitely is a little bit too extreme. I will admit that.
Does sound a little extreme.
Someone was telling me they could have charged $40 and still made 75% profit off of that shit. And and like we said, water is something that is an absolute necessity. And most fucking, like, I remember going to Lost Lands my first year, and if you go to the rail that runs up to the sound booth or whatever, there's people who are just like, you know, sitting there so you don't jump over and fuck up the wires that are running to the stage or anything like that. There's security guards all the way down it, but they have like coolers with bottled water, and they will literally open it up and dump it in your mouth, or fucking put it all over you so that you can cool down a little bit like that. That's what we like to see with music festivals. That's the energy that you get with music festivals. So yeah, EF is really doing some fuck shit with these prices for those water bottles.
For sure.
But are you gonna pay the price? Are you gonna pay it?
If you
go.
need
Am
it.
I?
Yeah, if you go, are you gonna pay it?
Hell no.
Okay.
$60? No way.
Oh, bro, I will steal that water way before I
See, that's what most people were saying. It was like, well, time to just form a mob and steal it all.
But see, you say that now, but I bet in situations where you might have to have it or feel like you need it and don't have it and have to pay for it, people are going to wind up paying for it.
For sure.
So ultimately, they're going to get exactly what they want out of this situation, which is a lot of money.
Which
Correct.
is the money.
For sure.
$60, and then a day later when they're out of their own water because they didn't bring enough.
Exactly.
There you go.
Supply and demand.
$60.
You also need to understand one thing about me is I'm a complete animal, especially at music festivals, man. Like you have to stay hydrated for sure, and as I'm getting older, we have to do it. But I've done some really dumb shit at music festivals, just not fucking staying hydrated, not eating, and fucking all that bullshit. So
I wouldn't know what you're like at a concert since you pussed out on Slipknot.
yeah, my leg was fucked up. So I'm sorry. I really do wish I was at that fucking show. Really.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing it up.
It's tough to miss too. Slipknot.
Thanks for bringing it up. Yeah.
I had to throw it in there.
Had to. Just had to.
I've been waiting all night to be able to say that, really.
For this moment.
For this moment.
Delayed gratification.
Exactly, and I was hoping it was for the right moment. It was laid out. It was laid out perfectly. Yeah.
Speaking of laid out perfectly, we're going to do a really shitty Your House, Our Rules segue here. Let's talk about some of these interest rates that you had wanted to bring up. Of course, you're a realtor, and from what I've heard, it's kind of evening out the housing market, and a lot of people are thinking that it's going to crash here soon.
They would be incorrect saying it's going to crash, in my opinion of what I've been told. Now, if it happens and I'm wrong, I'll admit it, whenever the next, whenever we do a podcast, if that happens, I'll admit that I was wrong. But from what I've been told and from a lot of people that have their ear to the pulse, okay, the interest rate jump, it's going to probably continue to go a little bit higher, maybe into the 7s. But all that's doing is preventing people from being able to purchase a house up to 200. Maybe they were pre-approved originally for 200,000 when rates were in the 4s, maybe 5s, and now they're probably in like the 150, 175 range. Okay, it's probably gonna it's gonna have an impact on some people that are gonna be like, all right, you know what, I'm just gonna wait, okay, and I'm gonna just wait a year or 2 years and buy and maybe just rent for a little while. Problem with that is we don't see a dip or a drop in home values. And probably won't here for a little while. Okay, they're projecting that home values are still going to go up by like 5 or 6% next year. Okay, so people are still going to be going up against other individuals in multiple offer situations and stuff like that. So if I'm giving advice to somebody, like, I would still look to buy now, and when interest rates do go down, whether it's a year or 2 years from now, you can always refinance.
Yeah. And the thing that I kind of want to interject here with was you helped me get my house, and one of the reasons why I found it viable to buy the house that I have was because I got a 3.25 interest rate on it, and like that definitely helps a lot. And you're saying that now it's not going to affect me because I already have that interest rate and I've already bought the house, but as things are going on, it's getting higher and higher, and that interest rate being double of what I have, that adds up.
It's going to affect values a little bit, in my opinion, where you might not see sellers get as much. So instead of like a 10 or 15% hike in values next year, you know what I mean, like what we've had almost like year over year for the last 3 or 4 years, okay, you're only going to get like maybe a 4 or 5%, 6% hike in prices next year, in my opinion, because it's going to slow that down. But our market is controlled, and I keep telling people this. Our market is controlled by supply and demand. And those who think it's going to crash, all right, they continue to revert back to 08, 9, 10, 11, all that. What happened back then was the 5-year adjustable rate mortgages for people who had 500 credit and a pulse to be able to buy a house, okay, who shouldn't have been able to buy a house, okay. Those became due, and then their rate ballooned up, and they couldn't afford it anymore. All right, they gave 100% no stated income, right? We don't have to verify your income to buy a property. Can you imagine that? If they didn't verify that you actually could afford to buy a house? Well, that's what they did back then. And then a couple years later, in 08 and 09, things collapse because those people couldn't afford it ultimately. The people that are winning bids on houses now are those who are putting 20-25% down or paying cash. So they have instant equity into their properties. So there's not going to be a crash. The only crash that they might see, indirectly will be values maybe coming down a little bit, but it's all supply and demand.
Okay, so like, Bret, you said you live in like an apartment type situation, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, where you rent. What advice would you have to Bret if he was looking to buy a house here in the next couple of months?
Yeah, because I'll give you my answer first. I was looking to wait, but I was thinking it was going to be, I was one of those guys you just referred to. I was thinking it was going to be an 08, 09 situation maybe. And that's because when those house values soared from, you see some of those house values like 300,000 to 500,000 go for almost double or more. And eventually that has to come back down. And then the interest rate goes up and it still stays at that high rate to try to buy a house. Most of those people, like what you said, might default on it, but you're saying that's probably not going to happen this time around, like because they're going to have the same rate, not variable rates. Or?
Well, the people that bought, last year because like in January the rate was still 3.75, and then all of a sudden, boom, things adjusted, and now we're into the sixes. Okay, so the people that are buying now,
But doesn't that have a lot to do with like the type of person and like credit that you have, the type of interest rate that you get?
correct? Yes, absolutely. So those who are going to be buying that have, they're still going to have an interest rate around 6%. Okay.
You're just talking about averages, though.
Yes, I'm talking averages. Yes. But the ones that are going to be able to buy, that are winning out on the bids for houses that they're purchasing, that, if an owner's getting 2, 3, 4 offers, like they still are, that's still the situation of what we're in our market. They're going to take the buyer that is either A, paying cash, okay, or B, putting 20%, 25% going conventional, who is a strong borrower. And those people typically have the money to be able, in the income on a monthly basis, to be able to afford to continue to pay that mortgage, okay? Even if they're at a 5 or 6 or 7% interest rate, if they're locked in for a 30-year term. My advice to you, if you're in an apartment and you're looking, you could still buy, because interest rates inevitably will go down to a comfortable level, okay? I'm thinking they'll probably go down to like the mid-4s at some point, which is still fantastic. Dude, back in the 90s, 80s and 90s, people were camping at banks, literally camping, like in a tent at banks for when they opened to get a 12.99 30-year fixed interest rate. Ooh, now home values were different. Yeah, home values were different back then. So we're talking like 150 or 200,000 for something that's probably 300,000 or 400,000.
Nice little middle class.
Yeah, but we're still talking 4 or 5% on your money. That's still an historic low. Okay, it's not as crazy low as 2.5 or 3% like it was for a couple years, but they were waiting to set the market basically and increase interest rates, and they waited and waited and waited. Now finally they're doing that. My thing is, why did you just do it all of a sudden? Like, it jumped and then it continued to jump, and then like I said, we're 3%, 3.5% in January, and all of a sudden we're at 6. You're twice that. So you're setting the mindset in the market. Buyers are like, well, fuck this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're saying. Yeah. But you can still refi, because inevitably rates are going to go down.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 20-25%. Stick it out maybe if I buy right now. Because I was thinking stick it out until rates maybe even come back down, house values come back down. You gotta think like you said, supply and demand. It's gotta be the supply and demand for it to be a low price, because nobody wants to buy. Right now everybody wants to buy, and then eventually it's like a roller coaster.
Correct. So. It's cyclical for sure. It's very cyclical. But I'm thinking values are going to come down a little bit on certain product, but they're saying it's going to continue to go up like 5 or 6% next year on home values. So they're like, well, lenders are like, well, pitch it kind of this way, where you're like, buy something now, and then when interest rates go back down next year, you can refi instead of waiting until next year when maybe that $325,000 house might be worth $340,000 or $345,000. You know what I'm saying?
So my situation that I got going on, where I bought in October of 2020, and things have gone up since then. What would your advice be to me? Because I'm not going to lie, I've been looking at kind of the way that the housing market has been going, and it's steadily going up. And I've thought about just selling my house just to make that little bit of profit.
All right, well, think about it this way. And I tell people this, and I'm honest and upfront. Okay, it's kind of a catch-22.
You're going to have to buy another house at the higher price.
Yes, and you're going to buy a house at a higher price that might be similar to what you just sold, you know? Like, if I sold this property today, can I make more money than what it was when I purchased it in 2019? Sure. But am I going to find anything like this for the price range of what I want? Probably not.
Well, unless you were wanting to rent in the meantime.
That's what I was.
Stay out of the market. So if you're wanting to rent, you could cash out, literally sandbag it until you're ready to buy again. But timing it is hard.
Yeah, so. That's exactly what I was asking you. And to be completely honest with you, I don't think that I'll sell my house. I'm happy where I'm at, and
I wouldn't if I were you. Okay. I'd stay put. You know, there's certain situations where people have to sell, and we're trying to get more, inventory on our market, trying to get people, to sell. But I'm not trying to be like, hey, you have to sell. Please sell your house because we're low on inventory on, blah, blah. Sell it if you have a good opportunity. Like if I've got somebody that I'm looking to sell their property and it's like $100,000 more than what they owe on it, so they're going to make some money off of it, right? But I told him, I said, the first question I asked him was, do you have a place to go or stay for a, short or even a potential long period of time between the time that you sell this property to the time that you buy your next house? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, then yes, we can do something. Because I don't want you to have to feel like you have to buy something or find something if you're staying in an extended stay for, 3 months at a hotel because you're homeless. Right? So in certain situations, yes, but if you're selling, for a reason that you're like, okay, I don't like this house, maybe I want to move on to something else or whatever, fine, but make sure you have a place to go because your house is going to sell quick. You just might not find what you're looking for right away. So
yeah, it's a waiting game, especially right now when you get 4 or 5 offers because you got to go through the buying process. If you're selling, you got to be the buyer on the other side of it at the same time.
Bro, people were explaining it to me, the housing market, before I got into it, and I really did not understand until we went and started. He would be like, okay, these are 5 houses that you want to look at. He's like, we're going to look at them today. And by the time I got off work that day at 5 o'clock, 3 of them were gone.
Yep.
Yeah. And they had gone on the market yesterday.
Same thing with cars.
Yeah.
My dad went to go look at a car. He's like, yeah, you guys got 5 of these here. Can I look at them? He's like, all sold. That's the same thing. So it's crazy right now.
Yeah.
It's supply and demand.
Yeah, exactly. Literally goes back to what we were just talking about.
The demand is high, okay, and the supply is low. And the reasoning for that is because in 2010, I could have scheduled on a Tuesday to show 5 houses on Saturday. All 5 of those houses would have still been available, and I would have showed them, okay? The reasoning for that is because we had a lot of foreclosures, a lot of short sales, a lot of other inventory that was on the market back then, okay, that we don't have now because people aren't going through that situation, okay, where they foreclosed. The people that had the 500 credit scores and the 5-year adjustable rate mortgages that expired when their rate went from a 2.5 to a 5% or whatever it was, and they're like, oh, I can't afford this anymore, and they foreclosed on it. Well, those aren't on our market right now, or at least they're not nearly as much. So our supply is not out there. It's supply and demand. That's what controls our market. So whatever happens with stocks and other inflation and products and this and that, it's not really doing much to our market as of right now. Okay, so that's kind of the update on that. So the interest rate hike, you might have dropped out some buyers, but I'm not seeing the lack of inventory on listings because I'm like, okay, is this still available after being listed for 4 hours? And he's like, well, I've got 2 offers on the table. Yeah. Right?
Beat those 2 offers.
Right, exactly.
Offer 10 grand more. And
interest rates are still up in the 6s. He's got 2 offers on the table. The seller's going to take one of those, and that's it. It's still pretty similar. So we'll see in 6 months. Come back to me in 6 months. I'll answer that question for you.
You know what I want to talk about interest rates of? These fucking cows, dude. We lost 3,000 cows in goddamn Kansas, and it had to have been aliens.
Had to have been.
It had to have been aliens. Now, apparently, fucking Mike over here has some information about these, where the ranchers who own these cows are. Are they aliens?
No. So No, they're not aliens. It's Bill Self. No, love Bill Self, Kansas head coach. I wouldn't mind seeing him coach Kentucky after Cal retires. No, from what I understand, the land was recently purchased, either that land directly or the land around it, by a gentleman by the name of Bill Gates, who owns the most land of any individual or entity in the United States of America, in case you didn't know that. And that's 2 videos that I heard from 2 people that I trust on stuff that I watch on YouTube.
Own the most land from that purchase, or just in general?
In general.
Wow.
He owns the most land, the most raw land of any individual, more than any other individual in the United States of America.
Do you know how much it is?
It was like tens of thousands of acres. Like, it was just some ridiculous number.
That is insane.
But think about that. What is he preparing for? That maybe, like, most people probably don't know that little tidbit. Like, what is it that he's doing? Like, he's a Microsoft guy. He's not a fucking land developer. You know, he's not a farmer. What is it that's going on there behind the scenes? But apparently, from what I understand, he either owns that land or the land just around it where those cows died.
Well, all I have to say about that is Bill Gates was the creator of an operating system that allows us to, interact with computers the way that we do. And he was the richest man in the United States for a little bit over a decade, 15 years or something, before Bezos took it over or something like that. So the reason why he's probably buying up these lands is because, invest in property. That's what they always tell. That's what I've always heard from, these big wigs that have a whole lot of money and stuff like that. They say invest in property because people need housing.
Yeah, not only that, but they want tax write-offs too.
Yeah, for sure. But it's farmland that he's purchasing.
But it's still property.
Correct, but you don't typically put big developments on farmland type property.
Do you know what he's developing, or is he just buying that to maintain the farming that's going on?
Yeah, it's just sitting there. He's been doing this for years, and there's nothing that's been developed on any of the land that he's purchased, from what I understand.
Well, I mean, he has these cattle ranches that are out there, and they're raising livestock. And when you own that property, I mean, we're kind of seeing it a little bit with like the way renters are going with like their tenants and stuff like that. Like, a lot of renters are just like jacking up prices over and over and over again, and they're making a killer profit to really do nothing but own the fucking house. So that's why when I say things like, buying property is going to be beneficial financially, when you own that property and you allow people to do that, you can keep jacking the price up on them. And maybe that's a reason why all these cows died, because they weren't properly taking care of the fucking cows.
Yeah, I don't know the ins and outs of that whole situation, but I do know, think about it this way. If he's buying farmland, let's say, where Sardinia, Ohio is? Up north.
I do not.
Yeah, it's in the middle of freaking nowhere. It'd
farmland,
be like,
basically.
yeah, it's farmland. It'd be like if he bought that space, who the fuck's going to move to Sardinia, Ohio, if he's going to develop some, 150 unit apartment space or condos or something? You know what I mean? Like, no one's buying up those properties for reasons for development, in my opinion. I don't know what all he's bought, but I'm just saying, I feel like there's something more to it that we don't know. And I think it's kind of ironic that those 3,000 cows or whatever were either on that land or around what he has. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I mean, I don't think that he's trying to develop it by any means. I think that there's that land that has been doing the same thing for years and years and years. He sees a benefit and a profit in buying that land and allowing them to do what they need to, and then upcharging them for their stay there.
Yeah, could very well be. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I just thought that was kind of an ironic little inkling that he was I don't know, just one of the owners. You kind of take that for what it is, but for what happened, it is kind of shitty that 3,000 cows died though.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I brought that up because you were talking about it before, and you were like, "I know who owns that land," and I thought you were gonna say something fucking crazy, like someone that we knew but wasn't like the second richest man in the United States. Yeah. Man, it is what it is. The cows died. I don't know if they were being like malnourished or anything like that, but it is sad. And I remember seeing the video of just like these 3,000 cows just lined up, rows and rows and rows on their fucking back. And
malnutrition, like if they're not like malnutrition, whatever the word is, terminology is there. Like, that's one thing, but 3,000 of them to die like that, there's no way that was all all connected to just that. Something fucking happened there.
I mean, it was also during that huge heat wave that we had, where everything was really humid. So that's probably the reason why they did. I don't care what explanation you have for it, though. I'm always going to blame it on aliens. It was definitely aliens. So let's move into the last segment that we always do on Your House, Our Rules. Episode 41 is what you've been sipping on. Any type of media, songs, anything. Video, audio, media, social things, experiments that you've been a part of. What have you been sipping on, man?
What have I been sipping on? Lately, audiobooks, man. I get into, which I wasn't even a big reader in school, high school, none of that. I do anything I can to stay away from books.
I'm the same way, man. I do not like reading.
Audiobooks, man. It's like podcasts, and I listen to my fair share of podcasts, but audiobooks they're just, it's so elegant, and they talk in your ear. They basically read the book to you. It's amazing.
Well, that's interesting because when I was a kid, my mom used to do audiobooks all the time, and like she was ahead of the curve in that aspect. But a lot of people who read a lot, they tell me like, you need to read. Like, you're an intelligent guy, but you will find just a completely vast pool of knowledge to get from reading. And I'm a slow reader. And I always have been, and that's the reason why I don't like to read. But if you have someone reading it to me, I could definitely get behind that.
Yeah, and I can absorb the information a lot better myself personally, and that's how I do.
Yeah.
The main audiobook I've been listening to right now is called Atomic Habits. James Clear, I think.
Atomic Habits, what?
Atomic Habits.
Is
He
that
basically just goes behind like the psychology of building habits and maintaining them. Like literally the psychology of when you do something and the subconsciousness of how your mind works. When you come home from work, you have the subconscious of like hanging your keys on the thing. You don't even realize it's a habit. And then you like change your clothes and stuff, and trying to break those bad habits and make new ones, make room for new ones.
Yeah.
A lot of people call that a routine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
people do that, but I love that because I do a lot of a lot of the stuff I've gotten into. My little tidbit here would be like those types of motivational pieces, the videos on YouTube, you know, the David Goggins, the Tom Blau, if that's how you pronounce his last name, but like Jordan Peterson, people like that, even Joe Rogan, dude. Joe Rogan's got some sweet motivational shit, but like it keeps your mindset in a path where you're always trying to challenge yourself to do that one thing, you know, one thing more than what you did yesterday. You know what I mean? And even as much as waking up and making your bed in the morning, you know, and that's what I've been doing for the last like 3-4 months. And it's a change in mindset because now you've accomplished something. The very minute that you wake up to turn around and make your bed, you're setting a mindset and a precedence for success for the rest of the day, in my opinion.
Yeah. And like that's one thing that I've experienced a lot. Like I have some issues with like depression and stuff like that. And like some other people that have talked to me about their situations with the same thing, I always tell them, I'm like, yo, clean your house. Because like I'm a fairly dirty person, but when I find that I have a clean house, I have a clean mentality. And when you're able to motivate yourself and do that extra little thing, and there's something to be said about just like getting something started. There's so many days that, you know, I go home and I get off work and I just sit on the couch and I'm like, man, I'm just going to watch YouTube for the rest of the night. If I get up and do one thing for 10 minutes, I know that I'm going to be sailing for the rest of the night. Sailing.
That kind of goes back to what you just said. It's about training your mind to not being complacent and falling back into the same routine of what you've been doing. So the book, The Atomic Habits, is you're trying to read something that's, you know, allowing you to train yourself to get into better habits that are going to be healthier for you in whatever aspect that you're trying to grow within yourself, because you're trying to get yourself out of those. And it's just basically saying, do this, do this, do this, instead of doing this and this and this, like sitting on the couch and watching The Office like I do. Like I know that's not accomplishing.
Great show, by the way. Such a go-to. It's a comfort zone.
I love it.
Oh, great show.
But I could go outside and, you know, do stuff at my house, or, you know, put a table together in my basement, or, you know, do stuff like that. Like I could make myself do things. But instead, I'm always like, okay, let's sit down and relax. And then relax goes into 4 hours down a well hole of either The Office or YouTube videos or whatever, then it's bedtime, and I've done nothing to accomplish during that time.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I kind of see a value in with like the audiobooks that you're talking about. I mean, you can go and watch YouTube videos, but a lot of that stuff is just geared towards entertainment. And like when you're actually sitting down and writing something out, like a full-fledged novel, that just has like a whole like intricate mindset that you are putting pen to paper. And when you're able to like hear it, and you talked about you're able to retain shit from listening to it rather than reading it. I'm the same way. So when you're able to do that, you have this entire like a bigger pool of things to pick from, and it's a great thing. I've been thinking about getting into audiobooks. Do you use Audible?
Actually, I use books on my iPhone, just the Apple books.
Oh, the Apple books, like the okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And I just buy whatever books that I want to listen to, and then I listen to them, and then I move on to the next one.
Hell yeah.
Try to get some Grant Cardone audiobooks in the mix. That's my next person.
Little real estate entrepreneur, man.
Yeah.
Grant Cardone's a beast, man.
He is a beast.
He's a baller. Yeah. Hell yeah. Do you like journal and like write down stuff, like just to kind of, put yourself in a mental state to like journal and kind of, date what it is that you're doing and how you're feeling and all that stuff?
Not the traditional pen to paper, but I have a lot of notes on my phone that are very dated and organized in a way that I can put my thoughts out there and
that helps
basically write it all down.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you do journal like that?
Well, it's so like even for my podcast, like I'll literally type out books of notes to put in for my notes, and then I'll condense it down for the podcast. But that's just an example. Anything else, like of course grocery lists or whatever, but literally journalism, sometimes I'll literally type out what I'm thinking and clear my mind. Like you said, trying to clean your house to clear your mind. It's literally, like once you I gotta clean the bathroom, and it's all this stuff that is clouding and fogging your brain.
Right.
It's tough to even stay on track with anything.
So a lot of people talk about like overthinking, and like they look at overthinking in a negative way. I've always looked at overthinking in a positive way, because I overthink. Like, I'll fucking think about a conversation that hasn't even happened yet for multiple hours and just sit there and dwell on this fucking conversation. But when it comes down to it, if you're thinking the things out and you're able to see what may or may not happen and see all the different pathways that could happen in this conversation or whatever you're doing in your life, it prepares you for that.
Yeah.
And I just think that, like, people really should, you talk about writing stuff down. If that's the way that helps you out, go for it. But I just like to, I'm not someone who likes to write things down or video record them or anything like that. I probably should a little bit more, but I like to free think, and I retain a lot of my thoughts a lot easier than most people do. So
that's impressive.
Yeah.
I actually have to type my stuff out or literally write it down. But the most thing that I do, literally just type it in my phone because it's with me all the time. But yeah, that's impressive.
No, I journal. I can't do that either.
Yeah.
And I overthink like crazy. So you're like, try and think. That's training your brain. Like, it's literally what I'm talking about earlier. Like, that's very impressive because
it is.
I can't do that. Like, I overthink, and then it clouds me, and then it's like, oh shit,
And it's interesting that you say. Sorry to cut you off. Interesting that you say that overthinking in a positive way, because I never thought about it like that. Overthinking in a negative way all day. Like, I got some of my friends that literally do nothing, but they go home from work, they open up TikTok, and their whole TikTok algorithm is depressing stuff because that's all they watch, and that's all TikTok feeds them, and then that's their cycle.
But that dictates everything that they are doing.
Yeah.
Like, that dictates their life.
Yeah, it does.
But listen, I do think about those negative things, but the thing about overthinking is, if you're overthinking something and you have a negative thought that that you're thinking about, when you overthink it, you start picking it apart, and it becomes less of a negative thing, and you can morph it into more of a positive thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, and when it comes down to writing down or whatever, you guys say that's impressive. The reason why I do that is because I've trained myself, because like I said before, I'm a slow reader. I don't retain pen on paper as well as I do just like the thoughts that I have. So when I'm looking at something, I'm reading it, I'll be like, I didn't understand a single word of what I just read. And then I'll have to go back and read it again and again and again. And it's just like, if I just actually sit here and think about it, it'll retain a lot better than that.
Yeah, well, especially when I was in school, like turn to chapter 2 and read this, and it's like silent reading to yourself. I'm literally just like, read the first sentence, and then I'll space out for 30 seconds. Read the first sentence again. It's like I'm mindlessly reading. You get each word that means nothing to you. It's just blank.
It's an attention deficit.
Yeah.
Really, it is.
Can't do it.
And I'm the same way, dude. I can't retain. Like, if I'm reading something, I'm thinking about 800,000 different things while I'm reading what it is I'm reading.
Yeah.
So I retain well. I'm just thinking about too much other shit.
So I can't retain anything because I'm thinking about the other 800,000 things, and I'm like, wait a second, what did I just read? So I got to reread it and reread it and reread it, and then I start to focus in on it. But the audiobooks, man, I love that because that's probably a better route to take to do that, because you can be doing different things, little small things while you're listening to that and still be able to grasp what it is that you're listening to.
Yeah. Of course, because if I'm just doing one thing, like just watching Netflix, it's hard for me to like pay attention to it. But if it's on in the background, I can kind of get the gist of it and piece it together myself. Because if I'm just watching that show or movie, I get tired immediately and want to fall asleep. Yeah, it's weird. Like sometimes even when I'm in the theater, if I want to see a movie and that's all I'm doing, obviously I'm not gonna have my phone out at the theater. I sometimes just get tired and want to fall asleep immediately because my brain is not doing stuff.
Sometimes it's
weird.
Sometimes it's easier to pay attention when you're not trying to pay attention. Because like when you're really paying attention, you're picking apart every single thing that is going on in this. Yeah. But what have you been sipping on, Wallet?
I mean, I've actually listened to a lot of motivational stuff, Jordan Peterson, David Goggins, things like that. What I've actually been sipping on recently is a ton of metal music, man.
Really?
Yeah. Dude, that Slipknot concert, it like revitalized
Fuck
my...
off.
That's twice, huh?
Did you like how I like put that in there? Like, what am I sipping on? The Slipknot concert you didn't fucking go to.
That's cold.
A bum leg over here. He's like, as I get older, I realize I can't do a whole lot of things. And I'm like, all right. I'm 3 rows back at a Slipknot concert, being drug into a pit. It's fantastic. It was a lot of fun. Anyway, no, I'm listening. I've been listening to a lot of like more metal music. But see, like I'm opening up YouTube Music, okay, which is what I have because I have an Android. I know you guys have iPhones, but like I'm opening up and you can like discover different like music and stuff like that. I freaking love that because now I'm going down like a chain of new artists and people that I don't know. So I'm getting into more like holy shit, I'm putting a playlist together of artists and songs that I never even heard of all of a sudden. I love that.
Yeah, so that's one thing that I will say. I mean, obviously, people know that I DJ. The best way to get new music is to go to related songs to songs that you actually like and build a playlist. When you start throwing stuff into a playlist and then you go back and listen to it back, because there's a lot of songs that you'll listen to it and it'll be like the second, third time you listen to it and you're like, this is actually trash. Yeah. So you know what? Just throw that out of the playlist. And like you have this collection of songs that you will download or that you will listen to, but when you start creating a playlist, you start narrowing it down to the things that really bang,
Well, and the thing is with most people's attention like spans, they'll listen to 30 seconds, probably less than that, of a song and be like, nah, this isn't going to work for me. I hate those people.
Yeah, I can't do it.
Dude,
like if I'm interested in an artist, I have to go through, if they release an album, I listen to it front to back like it was supposed to be listened to, and I may not do it all in one sitting, but I have to do that.
People do that.
Have to do that.
Good
Which,
for
by the way,
you.
shout out to you, Spillz, because I did listen to that new song you have with Smiles several times actually, and it's pretty good. So
I haven't yet.
Kind of what we were just talking about, front to back. Listen to the whole song, start to finish, and then I'll critique it if I like it or not, or if I want to re-listen to it.
Right.
I actually listened to that a few times on my way to work this morning.
And thank you, I appreciate it. It's been doing pretty well. I mean, I understand it for what it is. It's my first song, and Smiles did a lot of the legwork when it came to actually like putting it together, and I was more of the one who created the sounds that we infused into it. But I mean, for the first song that we ever released, I thought that it was a hell of a project.
I thought it was too. Yeah, great.
Dude, you're putting a lot of time, and like fucking respect the time and effort you're putting into what it is that you do, and the music that you're producing and the shit that you're putting together is dope. Like, it's really good. I like, it's very good, and I respect you for continuing to do what it is that you do, because it's genuine to your fucking style and your vibe. So good for you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank both of you for.
Yeah, I echo that, by the way.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I work hard on everything that I do, and you know what? I think that it's slowly paying off. The views might not be there, the connection might not necessarily be there, but at the end of the day, it's something that I love to do and that I'm going to continue to do whether or not anyone really listens to it or tunes into it. And I think that if I do that long enough, eventually that crowd will come, and as it grows, it will exponentially grow bigger and bigger and bigger.
For sure.
So
that's how shit runs, seriously. Like, that's how people become successful. They continue to do it, they become consistent with it, they stay consistent with it, and it just, people start following. Just like you said in the very beginning, you don't pay attention to anything else but what it is that you're doing, and the success will come.
Yep.
Bringing it back around.
Full circle.
Full circle. This full circle has ended. Episode 41 of Your House, Our Rules. Peace.